Look at your hand right now. 5 fingers, a palm, skin stretched over bones you have never once thought about moving. You just move them. You have been doing this your entire life, walking, breathing, blinking, dreaming, and not once have you stopped to realize that you have absolutely no idea how any of it works. The machine that is doing all of this, the machine that is reading these words right now, is almost entirely hidden from you. And the strange thing is, that is not a flaw. That is the design. But here is what nobody tells you. When you zoom all the way out, across evolution, neuroscience, and the deep history of what it means to be conscious, the real answer is far stranger than you expected. You are not the pilot of your own body. You are more like a passenger. And the entity actually flying the plane, you have never met it. Your brain generates approximately 11 million bits of information every single second. That is the raw sensory data flooding in from your eyes, your skin, your ears, your gut, your proprioceptive system. Out of those 11 million bits, your conscious mind processes roughly 40 bits. That number comes from the work of cognitive psychologist Timothy Wilson, and it means that for every single moment of your waking life, your unconscious mind is silently managing 99.9996% of everything that keeps you alive and functioning, and it never once asks your permission. Think about what that means. Right now, as you sit wherever you are sitting, your body is regulating your blood pressure, your oxygen levels, the tension in your postural muscles, the dilation of your pupils in response to ambient light, the temperature at your skin's surface, the rhythm of your heartbeat. Not one of those processes entered your awareness just now. They were happening anyway. They were always happening. And the fact that you did not know about them did not slow them down for even a fraction of a second. You are a stranger to your own operating system. This is not a new idea. It has roots that go all the way back to the early work of psychologist Wilhelm Wundt in the 1800s, who first proposed that the mind contains layers that consciousness simply cannot reach. Decades later, Sigmund Freud made the unconscious famous, though his version was more dramatic than the science that followed it. What modern neuroscience has revealed is simultaneously more mundane and more profound. The unconscious is not a cavern full of repressed monsters. It is more like a vast, silent factory floor. It processes, it predicts, it decides, and then, only sometimes, it forwards a brief memo upstairs to the part of you that thinks of itself as you. The work of neuroscientist Benjamin Libet in the 1980s cracked this open in a way that still makes philosophers deeply uncomfortable. Libet asked volunteers to flick their wrist whenever they felt like it, and to note the exact position of a clock hand at the moment they first felt the urge to move. He measured the brain's electrical activity the entire time. What he found was this. The brain began preparing the movement roughly half a second before the person reported feeling any urge to move at all. The decision to act appeared in the body before it appeared in the mind. Before you thought you chose, something else had already begun choosing. What is that something else? That is the question. Here is one way to understand it. Your brain's primary job is not to think. It is not to feel. It is not to be creative or curious or kind. Its primary job, the job it has been optimizing for across hundreds of millions of years of evolution, is prediction. Your brain is a prediction machine. At every moment, it is running forward simulations of what is about to happen based on everything that has happened before, and it is using those predictions to prepare your body for what comes next. Sensation does not arrive in your conscious mind raw. It arrives filtered, edited, pre-interpreted. You never perceive the world directly. You perceive your brain's best guess about the world, updated millisecond by millisecond. Neuroscientist Anil Seth calls this controlled hallucination. The colors you see, the sounds you hear, the feeling of your own body as a solid bounded thing, none of it is a direct feed from reality. It is a model, a construction. Your brain is constantly building a version of the world and a version of you, and presenting both to your conscious awareness as if they were simply the truth. And because this model is so seamless, so consistent, so instantaneous, you never notice the seams. But what happens when the model breaks? People who suffer damage to a specific region of the right hemisphere of the brain sometimes develop a condition called anosognosia. They become partially paralyzed on one side of their body, and then, and this is the part that is hard to absorb, they deny that anything is wrong. Not because they are lying, not because they are confused in any ordinary sense, but because the part of the brain that is supposed to update the self-model has been damaged, and so the model simply does not update. The person still believes their arm works. They believe it so completely that when a doctor asks them to raise the paralyzed arm and it does not move, they will confabulate, invent a reason. They will say they are tired. They will say they did not want to move it. They will say anything except the thing that is actually true, because their brain will not allow the true thing to exist in their model of themselves. Neurologist V.S. Ramachandran spent years studying these patients, and what he concluded was both elegant and disturbing. The self-model, the story your brain tells about who and what you are, is not a recording of reality. It is a hypothesis. It is the best theory your brain can generate about the entity it is running. And like all theories, it can be wrong. And when it is wrong, you will not notice. You will simply keep going, absolutely certain. Which means something uncomfortable becomes possible. You are wrong about yourself right now. Not in some catastrophic way, but in the same way your visual system fills in your blind spot with invented scenery, your self-model is full of patches. Places where the brain ran out of real data and substituted a plausible story instead. Your reasons for choosing your career, your explanation for why you reacted the way you did in that argument last week, your sense of what you value, what you fear, what you want. These feel like clear windows onto your inner life, but they are, in many cases, post hoc narrations, stories your conscious mind constructed after the fact to explain what had already been decided somewhere else. Psychologist Jonathan Haidt calls this the rider and the elephant. Your conscious reasoning, the part of you forming words and arguments and justifications, is the rider. But the elephant, the vast, ancient, automatic processing system underneath, is what actually moves. The rider thinks they are steering. Sometimes they are. But mostly, they are just rationalizing the direction the elephant was already going. Why did evolution build it this way? Why keep the conscious mind so small and so late to the party? Because speed matters more than accuracy. Because in the environment your ancestors navigated, real grass, real predators, real consequences measured in seconds, not minutes. Stopping to consciously deliberate was a death sentence. The animals that survived were not the ones who thought the most carefully. They were the ones whose bodies had already begun moving before the thinking started. Consciousness, if anything, is the luxury layer. The thing you get to run in the background when the immediate threat is handled. And so for most of human history, most of the decisions that mattered were made below the level of awareness by systems so old they predate language, predate the cortex, predate anything you would recognize as a mind. You are carrying those systems right now. They are running. They are making assessments. They decided, before you finish this sentence, whether the ambient light in the room felt slightly threatening. They noticed the emotional tone in the last voice you heard. They began preparing a stress response or a relaxation response before any of that reached your attention. You will never know most of what they concluded, and yet you walk around all day with the feeling of being completely present to your own experience. The feeling of being in charge. The feeling that you know, more or less, what is happening inside you. That feeling is not a lie, exactly, but it is not the whole truth either. The philosopher Thomas Metzinger spent decades studying the neuroscience of self-models and arrived at a radical conclusion. The self is not a thing. It is a process, a continuous dynamic act of construction that your brain performs every single moment you are awake and in different ways while you sleep. There is no little homunculus behind your eyes, watching the show. There is only the show, only the model, and the model is built in real time from incomplete data under heavy evolutionary pressure to keep you alive and keep you moving. So what does that mean for the thing you call you? It means you are not as transparent to yourself as you feel. It means the stranger you are trying to understand, the one in the mirror, the one whose motivations you are constantly trying to explain, the one whose dreams make no sense, is running on processes you cannot see and never will. It means you are, in the most literal scientific sense, partly alien to yourself. But here is what is strange. Here is the part that loops back to where you started. Look at your hand again. 5 fingers. You still do not know how you move them, but they move. The machine runs. And the fact that you cannot access the source code does not make you less real. It might make you more interesting. Because you are not just the part of the mind that thinks. You are the whole thing. The 11 million bits and the 40. The elephant and the rider. The prediction and the perceiver. The alien and the one trying to understand it. You have been a stranger to yourself your entire life. The strange thing is, that stranger has been keeping you alive all along.